Shalom, my dear brethren in Yahshua Messiah. There is a verse in the Bible which has caused a lot of controversies between those Christians who believe that the law of Moses has been done away with in the New Testament, versus those of us like me who believe that the law of Moses is still in effect until everything is fulfilled at the right time. Mark chapter 7 verses 19, there are words in parentheses, that is bracket, which in most of the late Bible editions, like the New International Version, that verse has been rendered, He declared all food clean. He, in this case, referring to Yahshua Messiah. That is, somewhere, He told His disciples that you can now eat anything, including the unclean animals, in Leviticus chapter 11 and in Deuteronomy chapter 14. The words in parentheses phonetically sounds something close to this. I'm not good in pronunciation. Katariso panda ta promada. Now then the word katariso mean purifying. It is an action word. Then panda mean all, ta, te, and then promata mean food. Thus, these wordings, katariso pandata promada, best be translated to He declared all food clean. We have Professor Harald Solbach, who claims that He declared all meat clean is there in the Greek manuscripts. In this video clip, he was disputing another teacher, and then this is what Professor has to say.
And the line in parentheses at the end of verse 19, thus he declared all foods clean. And those words are found in the earliest manuscripts we have. Let me show you. Let's look at the Codex Sinaiticus, which is the oldest complete copy of the Greek New Testament that we have.
Okay.
And it's online. I'll put a link to it below if you want to explore it for yourself. Okay, and what's nice about this website is that it's got the Greek text over here and the English text here below it, which is helpful if, like me, you're not an expert in Greek.
Now, what Professor is saying, we have the Greek version somewhere here, and then the English translation somewhere there. But the problem with Professor is that he goes to the Greek version, and then from there he comes with this interpretation, but he totally ignores the English translation.
So when you click on the Greek text here, it'll highlight that text in the image of the actual manuscript.
Original?
And check this out. Mark 7, verse 19, and there's the text in question. Katharizon, Panta, Ta, Bromata.
We have those four Greek words which are in dispute. So the question is, does these words translate to He declared all food clean, or these are the translation? Okay, this one are the same. Cleansing all the food, making clean all the foods, purifying all the food, purging all the food. Is an old word for cleansing.
What does that mean? Okay, real quick Greek lesson.
So I would like us now to listen to how Professor interpret those four Greek words in dispute.
So grammatically, the first word of this phrase, katharizon, is functioning in this sentence as a present active participle. It's an action word. And it's nominative, masculine, and singular, which tells us that in this context, in verse 19, the word katharizon is referring to Jesus.
That is where the problem is. That is not how Bibles were translated. The best method of Bible translation has always been word-by-word translation. The challenge now will be rearrangement of words. But somebody who is learned in Greek can best rearrange the words to keep the information in English. But here the word katharizon, something like that, Professor is saying being an action word, it points to Yeshua. And Professor is courageous enough to say it points to Yeshua. And he is not saying it as an opinion. That, to the best of my knowledge, when I check the context of this verse, this word must be pointing at it. He is saying it as if it is obvious that it is pointing at Yeshua. That is actually a deception. Professor should make it that it in our opinion as Christian translators, as theologians, this word must be pointing at Yeshua. This is a word which means what? Because Professor Shulevin started by telling us this katarizo means what? It means cleansing. It's an action word. Mean purifying. Mean to make clean. What informs him that the one making clean is Yeshua? Obviously, there is something or somebody doing the cleanings, but is it automatic that always points at Yeshua as being the one doing the cleansing?
Jesus is the one doing the action.
No.
And what did he do? What's the action?
That's it. That is how people interject their own opinion to scriptures, and then they go ahead and accuse those who try to say there is a problem here. He's saying Jesus is the doer of the action here.
Well, this participle comes from the lexical form of katharizo, which...
So you realize Professor now is interpreting the word katharizon, something like that, in two steps. The first one, he uses it to point at Yeshua as the doer of the work. Then he now comes the second step where he gives the meaning.
Means to cleanse. So it's telling us that Jesus cleansed or made something clean. Or if we want to use the pronoun, he cleansed.
That is actually the problem. So this katharizo introduced the name of the Savior in the English versions. When in the Greeks, that one is not there. But it is only an action word. It means something is doing the cleansing. The translators, they use what they already believed to write that in scriptures. Our beliefs may vary. Whatever we believe is not necessarily what is in scriptures. Even if the scriptures write what we don't believe in, the best thing is just to write it. Then if there are some footnotes you indicate, then you do it somewhere, but not as part of the scripture. That is actually the deception in the Christian world.
And what did he cleanse? Well, panta means all or every, and broma,
that one, all,
means food. So Jesus cleansed or made clean all or every food.
So here he is saying Jesus cleansed all food. When in the manuscripts that name or even the pronoun he is not there. That's the problem. The translators now made that change. They realized it doesn't sound very well. Then what did they decide to do?
Translations render it, he declared all foods clean.
That's it. The meaning of the word katharizo is to purify, to clean. It has nothing to do with to declare. The word declare is a different word from cleanse. And Professor should be the one actually to tell us that this word declared means something else. Cleanse means something else. It's not honest. Because in the first place, katharizo means clean. So it is there. Food is there. All is there. Then it is declared. It is like a katharizo has been split into two to produce the word declared and then cleansing. Out there we produce the pronoun he. Jesus declared all the food clean. And then these same people, those who are doing the translation, they also fail. Because when you say food, it depends on the context of the people in a discussion. You cannot further anything from the truth. Food to the Jews only refer to the clean animals. If you read Leviticus chapter 11, verses 47, where the Israelites were already told animals which you can eat. That is what as food. So you cannot now bring the others as part of the discussion. In trying to convince his followers that the context of Mark chapter 7 was about all animals as now being food, this is what Professor R.L. Solberg has to say.
And by the way, you'll often hear our Hebrew roots friends say that when food is mentioned during this confrontation, it only refers to what Jews considered to be actual food, meaning ritually clean food. But if that were the case, then Jesus would be declaring all clean foods clean. even though they're already clean. And that certainly wouldn't offend the Pharisees. They would have no problem with Jesus calling clean food clean. Now, Jesus was declaring all food clean, and that was offensive to the Pharisees.
The professor is also totally out of context. It is clear when you read Mark 7, verses 1, 2, and 3. What does it say? And they are gathered together into him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem, and had seen that some of his disciples ate their bread with defiled, that is, unwashed hands. That was the problem. To them, it was contrary to the customs, and it was wrong for the disciples of Yeshua to do that. So the context here is not about some disciples eating shellfish and pork. That is one thing, Professor. Then Professor read Matthew chapter 15, verse 12, and used the fact that the Pharisees were offended to claim that they must have been offended because Yeshua indicated that he was now declaring unclean animals as food. That is not the case. Professor should have gone ahead to read up to verses 20. If he is serious, it says, and these are the things which defile the man, but to eat with unwashed hands defile not the man. So Yeshua is saying, food which are eaten with unclean hands does not defile anybody, which was contrary to the Pharisees. That is why they were offended. Nobody mentioned pigs and shellfish. Another evidence that these professors are not honest, they are not really looking for the truth, but they are, I think, doing business for the Christian world, is when it comes to this verse, Mark chapter 7, verses 19, they don't look at the parallel verse of Matthew, because Matthew was in that meeting. The writer of Mark was not even a disciple. And then Christians believe that Mark was a partner of Peter. So Peter is the source of that information that Yeshua is the one who declared all food clean as per the Christians. But when you follow Peter, long after Mark, you will find him knowing that these animals are not food. When you check in Acts chapter 10, you will realize the same disciples, when they were writing to the Gentiles, they are telling them to abstain from this type of meat in Acts chapter 15, verses 20 and 29. So if Peter was the one who authorized Mark to write Mark chapter 7, verses 19, that Yeshua had already allowed eating of unclean animals, then you will see by behavior. Action speaks louder than words. Now let's see Matthew. How did Matthew understood what was being discussed? Look, and this professor will not read this. This is the same context. Matthew chapter 15, verse 20, it says, these are the things which defile the man, but to eat with unwashed hands defile not the man. And these are the words of Yeshua, even in the King James Version, the Red Letter Bible. These are the exact words of Yeshua. But professors will not want to read on that. Of which, that Matthew chapter 15, verse 20 agrees with the context of Mark chapter 7, verses 1. And there are gathered together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes who had come from Jerusalem, and had seen that some of his disciples ate bread with defiled, that is, unwashed hands. So there was actually no discussion here on some disciples eating unclean animals as food. And you can see even the context here. Some of the disciples of Yeshua were eating with hands which are unwashed. For the Pharisees and all the Jews, except that they wash their hand diligently, because it doesn't also make sense to you eat without washing your hands. These Jews, they were doing it extremely, they were overdoing it, and they were making it law. So Yeshua is not even the one accused for not cleansing his hand. It is some of his disciples. Now that was the problem here. Then Professor will use verses 15 to say, then Yeshua uses that opportunity to teach that we can now eat unclean animals. This one. Yeshua is saying there is nothing from without the man that going into him can defile him. but the things which proceed out of the man are those which defile him. And the way Professor is putting it as if it is something which is not in that day of discussion. But the context event here is showing it has always been like that. Even in the Torah, that is how it is. Things which we do are the one which defile us. When you disobey the commandments of Yahweh, then you are already defiled. Verses 18. And he said unto them, are you also without understanding also? Perceive ye not that whatsoever from without go into the man, it cannot defile him? He is not saying, as from today, I will now make it happens like this. It has always been like that. Yeshua is simply explaining what has been like that. He is simply telling the Pharisees that your belief that when you eat food with unwashed hand will defile you is superstition. It is not based on facts. And then he gives the reason why whatever is taken into the body with unclean hands does not defile somebody. Cause, and you realize Professor is emphasizing on the last part. He is giving the reason why what you eat with unclean hands does not defile you, because it go not into the heart. So meaning, if the food we eat with unclean hands go to the heart, it will defile somebody, according to the words of Yeshua. But Yeshua is saying the reason why it doesn't defile somebody is because it goes to the belly and goes out to the throat. Yeshua is not saying because I am now making food clean. It is where that food goes to is what makes it not defile you. Now, will it be hard for Yeshua to cleanse food, even if the food was going to the heart? He has no limitations. Then he said this making all meats clean. This is the American Standard Version. So what is actually making the food clean here? It is the stomach. The stomach has that ability to observe the nutritious part of the food, and the other one, including the guts. If the hand was not clean, it will move out with the unusable part of the food. This explanation by Panes, it entered not into his heart, does not reach or affect the mind, the soul, and consequently cannot pollute it. Even if it will affect the body, yet it cannot affect the soul, and consequently cannot need to be cleansed by a religious ordinance. The notion of the Pharisees, therefore, are not founded in reason, but in mere superstition. Drought, the sink, the fault, purging all meats. The word purging here means to purify, to cleanse. What is thrown out of the body is the unnutritious part of the food taken into the stomach, and leaving only that which is proper for the support of life, and it cannot therefore defile the soul. Professor also did not make an effort to inform us why this rendering, he declared all food clean, are only found in the late English translations. How comes the old editions, like the Authorized King James Version, use word by word translation? Look at this, batching all meats. Even in his explanation of this Codex Sinaiticus, Professor did not bother to read to us what the English translation is saying. Okay, it is saying because it goes not into the heart, but into his belly, and is cast out into the sink, making all meat clean. The word katarizo is an action word. You can see it, making here, clean, then all meat. All these are word by word translation. And you can see Yeshua is giving the reason why food eaten with unclean hands does not defile anybody, because it goes into the belly but not going into the heart. Yeshua is not saying because I'm now in charge of cleansing food. Verse 18, talking of anything. And he said out of them, and you without understanding also perceive ye that whatsoever, if you take whatsoever, you can eat anything. Alcoholism. Does alcoholism affect the way we act? Yes, drunkenness. And drunkenness defile you. If you use cocaine, heroin, it will obviously affect the way you act. So the word whatsoever here should be taken in context. You can see there is nothing. If we say you can eat anything now, then even Professor, do you advise your children to be smoking punk? You use cocaine? To use alcohol? Obviously no. Why? Because it will affect it will enter into their life. It will affect the way they act. So nothing in this case, food eaten with unwashed hands. Likewise, Matthew chapter 15 verse 20 is clarifying. The words of Yahshua is saying to eat with unclean hands does not defile somebody, but what comes from our heart defile us. Thank you.